All right, everyone. How are we doing today? It's time for another live stream, for what it's worth. He is a cool figure, isn't he? Baka-167. So we'll discuss the ins and outs of transforming him. He's actually... I mean, he's a devilishly complicated thing, but the clearances aren't bad. You don't really run into too many problems. I'll point out some of the trickier areas. So we'll get his gun out of his hand. It's the kind of gun that tabs in. So it has ambidextrous tabs, so you can see the tabs for the other hand showing there. But it just untabs from his hand. Set that aside. He did come, I got the one that just came with laser beak, but there's a more expensive one you can get that also includes a Ravage. But, you know, it's a god-awful, ugly Bayformer laser beak. But there it is. It's got some articulation on it and stuff. He didn't end up in the video because I didn't want to deal with it. Rotating the thumb at an angle like this is a little safer to do if you pull out all the way to here and then rotate, and then you can put it back. Just a little word of caution there. It's a little tricky to get it to rotate without putting too much pressure on the other joints. We'll just curl up his fist. Here he is without any accessories, au natural, as God made him. He got a little discombobulated, so I'll line up his tabs here. Boom, 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 boom. But pretty cool figure. I liken it. It's very similar in its complexity and finesse to DX9's Lahir. It's almost like the same designers going around shopping his design work to different shops, maybe. But it's definitely kind of the same philosophy as Lahir. It's very complicated. But let's transform him into a car. What do you say? So first thing we're going to do is the head's got kind of like a double armature, so it can be articulated down, so it snugs in there. And then I like to go ahead and get the arms kind of moved up where they peg at the shoulders. So there is a tab here. You can see it right there. And it plugs onto this tab on the windshield. You want to make sure that you get these flaps out of the way, because it can get stuck kind of next to his head, and then it's no bueno later on. So we're just kind of shooting for that angle there. We can put these tabs on the arms away, and also this rotates just slightly out of the way. It allows you to make the arm, you know, go up. So that's the idea. We'll just move those out of the way. And then we want the arms to kind of be like this. It is a bit of parking, but it just helps to get it out of the way for some of the other stuff we're going to do first before we get to officially putting the arms away. I'm going to lower these. I'm going to park them down here, and then you can take the wheels and just immediately put them there like that. The instructions have you like rotating them in all kinds of directions, but you can just put them straight there like that, no big deal, especially with the arms parked out of the way like this. So that's the idea. So we're going to untab the front. So it just tabs on here, and there's a slot that's actually kind of created. It disappears when you do that. So it's created by stretching that out. Yeah, I got a decent deal. I talked to Chosen Prime, and we came to an agreement vis-a-vis reposting my videos, which I never really liked. And so we're kind of back in business. I mean, if you want to figure and you don't want to wait weeks and weeks and weeks for the figure, then Chosen Prime is your best bet. I've always had a really great time. I mean, you order a figure at noon on a day, and it'll be shipped out that afternoon. Unlike, for example, Big Bad Toy Store is notorious, at least as far as I'm concerned, notorious for, you buy a figure and then like 3 days later they ship it. It's just frustrating, infuriating. And Show Z, the shipping just takes so long anyway, and on top of it, I think they recently moved and they had some logistical challenges, and it took a long time to get them to ship some of the stuff I've gotten from them recently that I paid for, that they shipped. I should have Sheridan, but I don't know when. It just cleared customs yesterday, and it's making a slow trek across the entire United States from California. So Fans Toys Sheridan is probably not going to be here in time, so I've been practicing with the old MP Grimlock, which I never got around to shooting. Anyway. So we just want to angle all of this like this, in reverse, just real quick. This folds there. Camera's not really high enough, I'm sorry. But the wheels can just stay right there. It's not any kind of a clearance issue with the arms stowed out of the way like that. But this goes like this, and then this all kind of collapses. There's a tab on the back of the engine that goes into a slot there. And then of course I already discussed how that tabs in. I'm kind of showing you both directions as I go so I don't have to do the whole thing all over again. But we're just extending all this out so it's nice and flat. And then you hyperextend this so the windshield's at an angle like it's supposed to be, and then you can kind of let it hang there. No big deal. We can go ahead and flip this over and compress it and straighten it so it's like that. We're just leaving that there for now. We're going to focus on the arms. So the arms are a little easier to work with if you just have them like this is the final position. Get the head out of the way. The arms kind of stow like this. Yeah. So we're just angling them out a little bit and making sure they're straight. And what we do is we're going to straighten out all the fingers and the thumb. And then we're going to transition the thumb to the other side, like that. We're going to open up this this plate that covers the arm. And basically, you're on the right track if you turn the hand around and you fold the thumb so it's basically in the same plane as that plate. So this is your goal here. And then you can fold the arm up. And we're just going to turn it sideways a little bit as we do. And we're just trying to get it kind of in there behind the head. We're going to do the same thing with the other arm. And this, there's kind of a chunk joint here. I've only got it set to 1 notch when I pose them because I like the arms a little further back. But it does go a full like 2 notches to go back to arm mode. But we're just kind of straightening that out. And so the goal is the thumb, you have to make sure that it gets under this plate. And it should look like that when you're done. So we'll do the same thing over here. We'll just chunk the arm down. Open up the plate. Straighten the fingers. Move the thumb over to the other side and fold it. Rotate the hand so that the thumb is in the same plane as the plate. And then we're just bringing it in, making sure the thumb and the plate end up inside that cowl, and then we're just rotating it into position. And he's basically holding the palms of his hands together by the time you're done. Before we tidy that up, because it's getting close, we're going to go ahead and rotate these wheels around. There's a little bit of a clearance issue with this part, but it's not too bad. And we tab that in. I'm going to rotate this one around and tab it in. These are just on a double armature. So they tab in. And then this, it can be kind of annoying to get this in. This one's already in the right position. But that tab that was on the windshield that the arm attaches to, right there, it can kind of get in the way. So what you have to do is make sure that you are clearing that tab first with the arm bit. I'm just moving this out of the way. So you just want to make sure that it's there, that it's going to clear. And then everything else should go together pretty straightforward. So it just tabs in like that. Pulling it out is kind of the same thing. You're just pulling it out. But you see how it pops loose pretty easily. So you just want to make sure that you're sitting over that tab. So we'll do the same thing on this side. We're just going to make sure that this tab falls down, so it's going to go under that. And then the rest of it isn't too bad at that point. So that's the whole front of the car done. Now we're just going to move these doors. It's a little parking, but we're going to move them out of the way so we can focus on the legs. The legs are a little crazy, and it took me a little while to figure out a better way than the instructions. The instructions kind of have you doing like a little of this and a little of that. In fact, the instructions have you do like part of the front end and then part of the back end and then part of the front end and part of the back end. I don't know why people that write instructions do it that way. But anytime you can just do a whole chunk of the transformation and be done with it is the better way to do it in my book. Anyway, so we're gonna move these pieces here. They have to be like this. That's ideal. And then you can just rotate the leg 180 degrees. Because mostly your goal is just kind of have them facing, to have these points pointed at each other on the back. It's the minimum amount that you have to move those things. Otherwise, you'd just be moving them constantly. And you're welcome to do that way if you want to. So first, I'm going to straighten this tab out of the way. Now, it can go too far out of the way. You don't want to go too far, but the best way to measure it, I'm going to put this heel spur, I'm going to park it there. And then we're going to lift this up. And then the best measure, like this is too far out of the way, you want it kind of pushing on this a little bit. It'll keep it out of the way for later. So we're going to do the same thing here. Heel spur. I'm going to lift this up and just make sure it's touching. This part, it tabs in right there, you see? And it also, there's a tab on this windshield or the rear window. This thing kind of captures that. So this is kind of the right way to do it as far as I can tell. It should kind of look like that. So we're going to untab that and just bring it back out of the way. This piece we can bring, it hinges here. So this is for leg mode and this is for car mode. So we're just moving it out of the way. And we can fold the foot 90 degrees like that. And now that it's folded, because I tried to keep this in place when I folded it, but it wasn't worth the trouble. But now that it's folded, this is out of the way. Sorry, you have to give yourself a little bit of clearance here to fold this down so that this will rotate. And then this piece also rotates. The whole thing lifts up back. I'm kind of skipping steps. I'll do better with the other leg here in a second. It's hard to remember this thing. But you're basically doing this and then you're moving that out of the way. Now that it's out of the way, we can take this thing. It's a little tricky to walk it in, but you want to kind of line it up here and make sure that that tab is going to go in that hole, and it ends up sitting like that. Then this rotates the rest of the way, lowers down, and tabs. So those of you who have this might be like, oh my god, you're putting all that together at that point? That's crazy. But believe me, it actually works. I'll just lift this back up again. And then we'll do the other one maybe with a little more clarity here. But basically we're unfolding this. We're getting this from the other angle too. And then you can lift this out. And there's actually a little tab somewhere. Here it is. So there's a little tab here. And it actually goes in a little slot there when you compress this thing down. It ends up sitting like that. So it's like a guidance tab. It's not really a hard connection. Anyway, so you have to make sure you create a little bit of slack here by pulling it out, and then you can rotate it. And then it helps to do this first, but you're just rotating that around. But you're putting the whole car back together. And once you can lift it and rotate it past the knee there, just about 90 degrees. It's a bit of a park too. There's a lot of little parking things with this to get it clean. And then we're lifting this out of the way. And then we can fold the foot or the wheel assembly down 90 degrees. And we're gonna tab this in so it's straight. Rotate this the rest of the way and also tab it in. So you kind of got the whole back of the car. I've got some scuff marks here from some of the abuse that it's suffered, unfortunately. But if you're not trying to do it at arm's length or shoot it for a stop motion video, you probably can avoid scratches. Anyway, I just want to make sure that's all. I'm just putting these back where they're supposed to be. They're just supposed to be spread out. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to fold this down 90 degrees. And then while we can, we're going to flip this over. Now you can go too far with it, it'll get in the way. You can go not far enough, it'll get in the way. And then there's just right. And then we're going to take this, there's a hinge right here. You can see it right there. We're going to fold it at that hinge. And in the process, the whole thing's going to go around the upper leg. And here's where you have to make sure that this little tab here, you just have to make sure that it's going to get on top of this for the wheel well to fold up flat. But you can see it's completely flat now. And then this bit rotates, kind of untabs there. It's a clink. It's like a metal thing. It's very loose. It just kind of lowers down, and then this kind of like a mandible bites around the leg parts there. So we're gonna do the same fold on this side. We're gonna bring this down. We're gonna flip this over and put it a little bit past there. And then we're gonna fold the leg at this point. We're gonna make sure that this goes on top of this in the process. It'll fold nice and flat. And then untab this, rotate it, lower it down, and bring the foot there, like that. And then we can rotate this around and tab it. So it tabs together. Just make sure everything stays tabbed. Looking at the underside here, we're just going to go ahead and move these out of the way and put them in position, which is along the sides here. We're going to flip out the toes, because that's where they stow, and then these, or the heel spurs really, and then the toes stow like that. So we're like this. Go ahead and flip open the doors. I like to put them right there. And because the thing the doors is attached to is going to rotate like 180 degrees, the doors actually end up moving a little bit along with it. So we're just rotating around, and these tab in here. And you can see the doors end up at a weird angle, which is why they do that in the video. But we're just going to rotate this up, make sure the top of the car is completely flat. Just making sure everything's tucked away here. And then this flips up here and goes there. And this flips up here, make sure this is tabbed. Goes there. And the doors pretty much function like the car doors. You can kind of gull wing them. You drive yourself crazy trying to like pick at this seam here to pull the doors out. It's much easier just to put a fingernail right on that part there and pop the door. Much easier. But you can open the doors pretty much like they would open just, you know, what's inside. You know, Sam's girlfriend really wouldn't fit in there very good. I mean, she was pretty skinny, but I don't think she was that skinny. Anyway, there you have it. Transformers what is it? I'm trying to remember. It was Sam, so it was Dark of the Moon Soundwave. Hey, Rufus. Catching up on comments. Still waiting one to arrive. It's a real nice figure. If you like the Bayformers are okay. I like the complexity of these. Assistindo aqui do Brasil. I assume that's Portuguese. I don't speak it. Always have to Google it. Dude, it's your action figure. Take your gloves off and you'll have an easier time with it. It'll be more fun. Okay. I don't know. I just like the aesthetic. It's a cool figure. It's going to go in the display. Hey, Soundwave. Well, that makes sense that you made it to your own live stream. I'm just going to fiddle with this guy, put him back in robot mode so I can put him on display. Here's the big unfold. Just unfolds like that. The instructions kind of have you fiddling with one joint and then the other joint and then one joint and the other joint. I like to, if I can, I like to move a joint and then never move it again. For me, that's pure. Untabbed and moved out of the way. Go flip up the foot. Flip this down and kind of park it right there. And this flips the rest of the way around. And we can untab these bits. Rotate that out. Go ahead and while it's slid out, we rotate that. And then we slide it in and tab it. Right there. Tabs, and then this wraps around, captures that tab, and itself tabs into place. And then we can lower the foot, adjust the toe, adjust the heel spur. That's one foot. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to go ahead and rotate this one around. So that is one foot done. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. Rotate that out of the way. This out of the way, flip that up, move this into position, rotate this the rest of the way, untab it and rotate it. Go ahead and rotate this bit, and then we're gonna tab it into position there, flip this around, capture the window. Heel spur, flip down the toe, rotate that around, put this in place. We got a little carried away rotating that, didn't need to rotate it that much. Get those in place, and then there we go, feet. Check the comments. Love the complexity and look at this figure. Where'd you get it from? I got this one from Show Z. No, I got this one from the Chosen Prime. Because if I got it from Show Z, it would still be shipping. So Chosen Prime, I ordered this on a Tuesday. And it shipped on a Tuesday. And it arrived, it comes from Arizona, it arrived on the East Coast on Thursday. So it happens pretty quick when you order from Chosen Prime. Hold them. This is going to face the elbow. Roll up my fists. That. Let me do the same thing on this side. Up, rotate it around. And we can fold the arms up out of the way. This whole thing discombobulates. Tab in the engine. Tab in the front. There we go. It's a little too tall. Bring these around back and put them in place. Take these like this, and then we can flip these down and tab them to the windshield. I like to bring it forward one notch. It'll go 2 notches. You can have 90-degree shoulders, but I like them back a little bit. Personal preference. And I always need a little bit of a spudger to grab the ornament here. Also, a point of controversy. I had my good pal, All Hail Transformers, and another fellow on the stream say, "Well, you didn't expand the upper arm." Now I gotta call a little dispute to this, because we're talking about this much motion. You ready for this? This is expanding the upper arm. There we go. We just expanded it. So I'm a little skeptical that that's actually a step. And so I'm not going to kick myself for not including it. And that's just the way it is. That's just how that cookie crumbles. That's him. Got to pose him up a little bit, but he's ready for the shelf. Except I got to do this part. Silly, silly Billy. There we go. Alright. Dark of the Moon. Soundwave. Back to robot mode. There's really not much similarity to the Human Alliance or the Studio Series. I mean, the Studio Series figure is, a whole bunch of shell packed up on the back like they always do. Not terribly sophisticated development. Transformation design. A lot of people say engineering, but for me, let's be honest, the engineering is how it mechanically is assembled. Like, I don't know. For me, engineering is not a good word for the transformation design. Because it's design, not really engineering. Engineering is like a very specific thing. But there's not much similarity between this and the Human Alliance. The Human Alliance, like the legs were made out of a very small part of the car. And but they're trying to have like an open cockpit inside the car for the little figure to go into. So they have their own challenges and constraints when it comes to Human Alliance. So I'm not going to fault it too much. It was the best Soundwave we had for a while. I got the deluxe Soundwave from the original movie line, not the Studio Series one, but the deluxe Soundwave that was never sold in the States, or you had to go to Ross to find it. But I had to track it down. That was a pretty good Soundwave. I like the way that one transformed. Are you a big fan of the Prime series? Yeah, Transformers Prime is great. There's a whole story behind that, but basically it seems like, if I have it pieced together properly, that Hasbro had developed figures for Transformers Prime that were very much in keeping with the original, like, Transformers animated figures. They're not hollow. They're high quality. You know, parts are actually screwed together and pinned together, and the transformation design is complex. But I think they had trouble shopping that when the 2008 downturn occurred, the economic downturn. They had trouble shopping those to, your Walmarts and Targets and your retail chains. And so they retooled the line and developed cheaper figures, some of which are quite good. Like the Viacon that came out on the regular line was awesome. I did a video of it. But the way the whole car like folds up into the calves is just really cool on that Viacon. But they had all these figures that were more expensive and more sophisticated, and Toys R Us, at least here in the States, bought those, and they branded them as Transformers Prime First Edition. Now, those First Edition toys, with the exception of the Viacon, which is overly complicated, those First Edition toys are like fantastic toys. And even some of the other mainline toys that came out at like your Walmarts and Targets, a lot of those were very good. But they were starting to get hollow. You started seeing all the hollowness creep into the toys at that point, and ever since then we've had hollow toys. But yes, I love Transformers Prime. Yeah, I wish we had more first editions. Those were definitely toys that were intended for a market before the economic downturn. I just think plastic prices went up because, you got to make it out of oil ultimately. Production costs went up, transportation costs went up, and you ended up, back in the day, like the, Transformers Animated, you could get a deluxe scale figure for Transformers Animated. That's a fantastic figure. These Transformers Animated figures, there's nothing hollow about them. They were, like the thigh, instead of being like a hollow piece that snapped on, it was like actually screwed together and stuff. Transformers Animated was great. It's the last full line that was built that way. And you would get those figures for $10. A deluxe figure was $10. These days you're paying $20 for a deluxe, and it's hollow, and it's not as big as deluxes used to be. So we don't get quite as much for our money as we used to, but that's, that's inflation and international economics for you. But I wish all the figures, I would have been happy to just pay more for the better figures than get hollow figures. And ever since then we've had hollow figures. Well, I transformed him into a car, and I transformed him back. I don't know if there's anything else. I'm just going to keep him in the front. But I did get this today. Sometimes you go to Target and you tell them to go look in the back room, and sometimes they're assholes about it. And sometimes they're cool, and they bring you what you wanted. So I got myself a Transformers, Earthrise, Commander Class, Skylynx. But it's hollow. They're all hollow. It looks pretty cool. Makes me kind of sad because I did the pre-order for the Earthrise Ramjet and Dirge. And you can see both of them pictured here on the package. But what you don't see pictured on this package is Thrust, which is probably my favorite Conehead. And I'm just hoping I can get a hold of a Thrust someday in the Earthrise line. I don't get many remolds or recolors or refabrications, but I'm a kind of a sucker for the Seekers. It feels like they dumbed them down for kids right around the AOE. Yeah. And a lot of those, like I said, the figures got hollow because they had to produce them with less plastic because I assume the plastic was costing more at that point. And the transportation costs, if the figures don't weigh as much. Although really it's bulk, it's like volume that costs you on that kind of international shipping anyway. Like when they put it on a boat, all the boat people care about is how much volume it takes up. You know, unless you're shipping like, you know, transformer boxes just full of tungsten or something, in which case they might have a word to say to you about the weight. So it's probably just plastic costs that drove that for the most part, but they ended up pretty hollow. But it's just amazing to me that these third-party companies can make figures that are cheaper than, like this is cheaper than a Hasbro MPM, and in a lot of ways it's just way better than a Hasbro MPM. Or some of the newer ones are kind of iffy. But this is a really cool figure, like Lahir. So it's a good find. It's an excellent figure. With Laserbeak with his arms folded up. He doesn't really have any place he attaches, so you have to kind of... you have to find some way to put him on there. So, for display purposes, I might just use sticky tack. Just stick him on there. Some of you that have had this longer probably are... I got them balanced, but now I want them to look at each other. Yay! Alright, nobody breathe. I don't know, the dumbing down of the transformation design relates to assembly steps. I mean, you can have a very clever design and not have a very high part count or assembly steps. For example, the Transformers RID 2015 figures, the Warrior class figures. Most of those I really like. They're really clever, really fun, but they don't have a very high part count and they're all hollow, so they're hitting all the marks. But it just seems like Hasbro and Takara go through phases where they have maybe an up-and-coming designer is working on a line like RID 2015, and they get promoted to do MPM or Masterpiece or whatever. So, I don't know. Sometimes the lines have uninspired design, transformation design, and sometimes they're like amazingly clever, and you have to imagine that designer might have gone on to bigger and better things at Hasbro Takara. What's the rarest figure I own? Gosh. I mean, this guy was kind of hard to get, but I mean, in the age of eBay, you can get anything you want. But I remember this guy never showed up at stores, so I kind of keep him around. And he's a little dusty. So I'm going to... Here we go. So that's one I keep around that's pretty rare. But I also have the deluxe class, the original deluxe class Leadfoot. That was hard to get. And I couldn't get the original. Someone actually produced a knockoff of it that was like $35 as opposed to the original one that was super rare, had hardly been produced. That figure was, would set you back like $200 or something. So, but I don't think that counts because it's a knockoff, not really the figure. This is like one of the rare, really the figures that I was able to get. This is basic class, Reveal the Shield, I think, Cliff Jumper. It's kind of rare. I mean, when you think about it, any of the Masterpiece figures or any of the third-party Transformers like this guy, they're pretty rare. I mean, they only make like, I don't know, maybe 2,000 of this guy. Whereas the mainline Transformers, they might make tens of thousands of a given figure. So it's a matter of market scale. So it'd be kind of hard to tell. Some of these third-party figures and even like Masterpiece figures are more limited runs, so in a sense they're rarer than even some of the mainline figures. So I don't have a good answer for you. I'm just going to stick with this guy. He was hard to track down for a reasonable price. It was weird that there was a whole period there where they couldn't finish a line. Like, Transformers Animated got canceled. Someone said that it was maybe because the movie lines were coming out at the same time, so they just decided to cancel Transformers Animated, which was a shame. Those were cool, stylish figures. And then they went through this. I remember for a few lines, including like this line, there were movie lines where you didn't get the deluxe Soundwave in the States. The deluxe Leadfoot was really hard to find. Like I said, I ended up just getting a knockoff for it. All those movie lines, they would kind of like drop the lines. Like Walmart and Target would be like, no more, we can't take any more. So all the there would be all these announced figures at the end of the line that would trickle into like maybe Ross or TJ Maxx or Ollie's or something, and it would be hard to find them. They'd get remaindered off, or and they wouldn't be a full production run either. They'd do a partial production run, or like maybe production run 1 of 3, but never do 2 and 3. So there were a number of lines there back in the that era where announced figures would just not get released. They've been better about that now. You don't really get many announced figures that just never come out. So I guess they've gotten a little better about negotiating with the big retailers to carry the figures. Do you ever go to comic hobby shops to pick up figures? I don't know. We have one. We don't have a very big town here, very big city. Maybe 100,000 people, 150,000 in the whole county. It's not huge. There's like one comic shop, and mostly it's comics. So I don't really have any place to go looking for that unless I want to drive in towards like Washington D.C. and look for comic shops there. So I don't tend to. I don't know why this is scrolling weird. Okay, thank you. Well, you might be late, name for comments, because I reckon I'm about to sign off here. You're going to have to rewind to watch this happen. I appreciate everyone dropping by. Looks like we peaked at 17 simultaneous viewers. That's exciting, I reckon. That's pretty much it. If anyone has any final questions, I'll hang out here for a couple of minutes to make sure nobody has any pressing agenda items, and then we'll sign off and look for, unless by some miracle Sheridan shows up in time this week. Like I said, it's taking the slow march across the country from California to Virginia. I think this week you should expect the old MP 8? 9? I don't remember. But the original, the OG MP Grimlock. It's not a very complicated figure, but why not put it in the catalog because it exists? I'm going to have to do the Masterpiece Rodimus someday, the old Rodimus figure. I'll just answer both questions at once. So one of these days I will have to do MP8. MP8 Grimlock is this weekend. And MP9 Rodimus. I don't have the trailer for that one. It's kind of sad. I just have the United States, the US Toys R Us release that just came with the car. So maybe I'll never get around to that one. Hard to say. But I'd love to get that trailer. I wish someone along the way had just sold the trailer. Sure thing, name for comments. Your video of the MP39 Sunstreaker legitimately brought me to purchase my own copy of it. I love that figure. It's a great design. It's a little backpacky like Takaras tend to be, but I mean, the fact that it can also turn into just a legit Lamborghini instead of like a souped up Lamborghini, probably something that the Lamborghini group insisted on. They probably said, like, it's got to turn into a regular Lamborghini. So the fact that the car kind of transforms into a different car, that's really cool. And I really like the posability and the design work on that one. It's really, really clever figure. Coming on the heels of MP36 Megatron, it was kind of like a whiff of how they were going to approach things from that point. They were going to try to be more cartoon accurate with their figures. I think they've done quite well with the figures since then, even as controversial. Like the expensive MP44 was great. MP45 was great for what it is. It turns into a fat little chibi car and somehow still turns into a kind of a skinny robot. I think they did admirably well with that design. And of course, MP40, I forget the numbers. I'll just look at them. MP47 Hound. Hound is a fantastic figure. What a well-designed figure. I guess the next car we're going to get is MP51 RC. So look for that video someday when they release it. I thought about getting MP50 Tigatron, but it's just too much like Cheetor and too expensive to bother with. That Rodimus is basically a parts former. Are you just talking about the parts that unintentionally pop off of him? Yeah, I mean, it could be worth doing a video because he's got enough idiosyncrasies to the transformation that I could probably shine a little light on a clean way to transform it, or as clean as I can come up with, but without the trailer, it just doesn't feel worth it. Alright, gang. Again, thanks for coming by. Look for Grimlock, or if fate shines on us, then maybe Sheridan, Fans Toys Sheridan. Certainly by next weekend, we're going to have Fans Toys Sheridan on the menu. This weekend will probably be MP8 Grimlock. Simple as he is, short video, kind of hard to make him stand up the whole time. It'll be a challenge. See you guys later. Have a good day.